You got pocket aces.
No, Mario, I don't. But I'll tell you what I'll do.
He's about to do something that you should never do at the poker table.
You give me one of those black checks over there. I'll turn over whichever one of these two cards you'd like to see. Oh, on the square. I mean, hell, you've had a rough night, you know.
Perhaps you think that reverse tells are a great way to win at the game. In this video, we'll discuss whether that's actually the case as we analyze this fun hand from the Stu Ungar story. So this is one of those hands where I love everything about the entertainment value, hate everything about the technique involved, because this is described in the movie as a hand where the wily veteran is showing that he knows how to make a move. It's a great spot to make a move. Guys, in real life, anytime you try to make a move against a recreational player, trying to get them to fold an overpair, probably going to be a losing proposition to you, especially if it's a blank board like this. But we will see that the hand opens, kind of the positions are a little bit murky, and the wily veteran grinder, he opens from, let's say, the cutoff. And Mario, who's the recreational player, he's been losing for the night, he decides to 3-bet from the small blind. He's got pocket kings, as you see, and for whatever reason, the grinder decides to call after opening with deuce 7 offsuit, probably just to show off and make this guy look bad. So we go see a flop, and it's a 7 of diamonds, 3 of diamonds, 3 of hearts flop. Of course, pretty good for Mario, who has pocket kings, pretty innocuous board. The grinder really should not have too much 3x in his range. The only realistic hand that beats him at any frequency here is like pocket 7s, and it's gonna be pretty rare to have that. So Mario decides to check, which is a move we don't see too often from players with this hand from out of position. He does go with the check. He easily could have been betting range here for anywhere from 1/3 to 1/2 pot. But as played, the wily veteran now takes a stab with his weak top pair, and he goes 5,000.
I gotta bet you 5,000, Mario.
And it's okay to go for some value, some protection here. In case Mario has overcards, checking back would be just fine too, because he's so vulnerable to check raises here, right? Like, how many hands in his range actually want to bet and then call a check raise? Even his marginal overpairs like 8s through jacks are immediately on the defensive when it went up against this line and are pretty much reduced to bluff catchers when he goes here. So checking back quite often will be totally fine for the grinder to do from the cutoff. However, when Mario goes to 10K,
Raise 5,000.
it's pretty obvious here that he either has an overpair or a strong draw. Mario did just go to 10K, so it was a min raise. Given the amount of draws that could be involved, the fact that he has position, he's closing the action, not the end of the world to call here.
Well, I don't know what you're betting, Mario, but I got a call.
Now, you could be a good player and do the right thing all the time and do okay. But a great player knows when to make a move.
So the turn is another deuce. And this is where ranges start to get a little more defined. Mario now checks again, which is kind of unheard of. He really should just keep the initiative here and keep going for more value. But he checks. Immediately, the grinder from the cutoff goes 20K, which is like roughly a pot-sized bet, maybe a little bit less.
That did it. Bet you 20 grand.
There is no circumstance under which Mario should ever be check folding here. Like, he could have just bet it out himself, but if he does check, he's checking to set a trap to induce a bluff. There's just no universe where this is ever a check fold. However, this is where the reverse tell gimmick starts to come in.
You got pocket aces.
No, Mario, I don't. But I'll tell you what I'll do. You give me one of those black checks over there. I'll turn over whichever one of these two cards you'd like to see.
And if you watch this hand, you just see how absurd it is, because number one, the wily grinder is basically, he's holding deuce 7. So his plan is to show Mario a card, and if Mario picks the 7, he's going to be representing pocket 7s. If Mario picks the deuce, he's going to be representing pocket deuces. The thing is, neither hand really plays that way, right? Like, most players on a board like this would trap pocket 7s for at least one bet. Most recreational players don't immediately assume somebody has pocket 7s if they're raised. So his line doesn't make a whole lot of sense with sevens flopping a full house on this board. And now if he has pocket twos, it makes way even less sense. Like, at least pocket sevens could in theory some of the time fast play here, but why would pocket twos bet the flop and then call a check raise? It doesn't make any sense. The grinder would most likely have either checked back the flop or folded to the check raise. He very rarely has pocket twos in his range at all by the time he arrives on the turn, so the Rex fear that he has pocket twos is completely unfounded. The Rex fear that he has pocket aces is also completely unfounded because there was, the wily veteran just called the bet pre-flop. So none of this really makes any sense, and the fact that he's considering folding now is kind of absurd. But as you see, the hand begins to develop where the player in the cutoff offers to show him one card.
Oh, on the square. I mean, hell, you've had a rough night, you know?
And so immediately your antenna, if anybody ever does this to you in a casino, it should begin to go up. Because most players, when they're representing a very unlikely hand and they actually have it, they don't want to do anything that would potentially tip you off to the fact that they're actually holding this unlikely thing, right? Like, most of the time they would just sit there, be quiet, and hope you don't believe them because they're representing something as strong as a full house. You'd rather just have your opponent think you're bluffing here than go through the charade, showing a card, and trying to induce a call that way.
That one.
This one.
He does decide to show him a card for theatric purposes. Mario picks the deuce and right away stumps himself and assumes he must have pocket deuces.
Son of a bitch. You got a full house. Two's full of threes. That's why you let me look. They're both the same. You lucky bastard.
Not really reasoning through the hand properly, not thinking through the hand reading at all, and just folding the top of his range basically with kings as the other player gets to have a laugh and show the rest of the table his hand.
Nice draw.
Well, not exactly.
Oh my fucking God. You could have turned either one. Jesus, what a bluff.
No, that is just plain historic, DJ. You did it.
Want to get into a little bit more though. I mean, the actual technicals behind this hand are kind of absurd. Obviously, playing deuce 7 and calling a 3-bet in the first place is absolutely ridiculous. Then a player check folding kings on the turn is crazy as well. The bet sizing all throughout is absurd. Don't get too lost in the technicals. The main takeaway from this video, the number one takeaway, is reverse tells in general. Should we engage in reverse tells or not? A lot of recreational players and a lot of people who just kind of casually play poker once in a while, or they've heard about poker and they think poker's all about kind of finding these gimmicks to fool your opponent, finding these little hustler tricks, and that's how you win at poker. It's an enormous misconception in the game. The thing about reverse tells that I want to stress is ultimately a reverse tell against a good player ultimately just becomes a tell. Right? Like, if you're going to be doing something to demonstrate strength every single time you're weak, anybody who's played with you enough times will just correlate that behavior with weakness once they get a little more data on you. The same thing is true when you're trying to act weak, all throughout, but it's actually just a tell of strength. These things are not reverse tells once you have enough data, they just become direct tells. So trying to fool players with these types of gimmicks, not only does it kind of make you look like a jackass, but it's just bad for your overall poker game because you're giving off so much information that anybody, if they have any amount of data on you, will eventually learn how to exploit and learn to know when you're strong and when you're weak. So a better approach is simply to do the same thing every time you're in a hand. Same posture, same betting motion, same timing, not giving off any information about whether your hand is strong or whether you're weak, certainly not turning your cards over to give your opponent an extra read. Now, somebody raised the question that I talked with this hand about. They were saying, well, what if the player was equally balanced when he did this tell? What if he sometimes did it when he did it pocket twos, he sometimes did it when he had the nuts with sevens, he sometimes did it when he had deuce 7 like in this. He shouldn't ever have deuce 7 because he shouldn't have played deuce 7, that's besides the point. But what if he could somehow be balanced? And so what we'll say here is it is so hard for human beings to be balanced in a situation like this that occurs so infrequently, with so much emotion on the line, so much money on the line, that it's almost guaranteed you will trip up and go in one way or the other. When you start showing players a card, there's a good chance this will just be slanted towards bluffs for you if you're like most players, but even if you were slanted towards value, that's also giving off information. It's so hard to balance it properly. Therefore, the best way to balance yourself and not give off information is to simply not go down the road of gimmicks, sit there and just play a solid game, same demeanor, hand after hand, equanimous. Now, that's not the type of stuff that makes great entertainment value. It's not the type of stuff that creates a great movie. But if you want to take away anything instructional from this movie, it's enjoy the entertainment purposes, but don't engage in the BS when you're actually at the poker table. I hope you enjoyed it. Please click subscribe for more videos just like this.